Well, this is a shock reality that you're waking up to this morning. Now petrol hits 210 shillings per litre. Paying at the pump, the price of a litre of petrol, diesel or paraffin has crossed the 200 shillings mark for the first time after the Energy Regulatory last night announced new retail prices for the next month. For Kenyans, this means food, electricity, transport and other related costs can only go up. And this is how it is retailing right now. Petrol, 211 shillings, increase of 17 shillings. This is a record mark in the history of this country. Diesel now will be retailing at 200 shillings, increase of 21 shillings. We have 202, increase of 33 for kerosene. And this story is well laid out for you on page 8 of the Daily Nation this morning. High pump prices outside government's control. This is what EPRA is saying. And this is a crisis. That is what the flag is reading here. And this is the depressing news that, of course, you're waking up to in the morning today. This is what is on the front page of the Daily Nation. And we can see also DP Gachagua in Colombia. School set to receive free learning cash next week. This is what the PS is saying. And the cause of political fallout. What a waste. President William Ruto's Kenya Kwanza administration is seeking to either revive or abandon some of the multi-million shillings projects initiated or halted by his predecessor Uhuru Kenyatta. And Kenyan taxpayers, as always, are set to pick up the tab for this unwarranted wastage. This story is tucked away on page 7 of the Daily Nation this morning. And Huduma number 1. President William Ruto's government has done away with the 10 billion shillings project and rolled out a new 1 billion shillings Maisha number, which also the lobby group is raising special umbrage with. And of course, they're protesting the rollout of Maisha number. Also on police uniforms, fresh proposals for new uniforms and the phasing out of old ones, which the Uhuru government had said was at the center of a vicious tender war with a political angle. We have Aror and Kimwe Red Dams. President Ruto has announced the revival of the construction of the dams after initial 22 billion shillings was said to be overpricing. And cases still in court. Also, we have Luatoni floating bridge. This is the 824-meter, 1.9 billion shillings project earmarked for demolition. Transport CS Murkomen says this is what has really gone down the tube as wastage. And of course, if you accumulate all this figure, that is bound to be an eye-popping figure. This is how the Daily Nation looks this morning. And also on top here, ESCC gets order to freeze 643 million shillings belonging to junior City Hall employee. That is what is on also the teaser on top there. You can follow the story on page 2. 643 million shillings for this urban planner in the City Hall, Nairobi County. Relief as doctors remove needle left in woman's womb during childbirth is another story that you want to follow inside the Daily Nation this morning. The Standard shock of schools, 29 billion shillings debt. That is what we have as a splash today. Cash-strapped learning institutions operations, including preparation for this year's national exams, could be jeopardized after it was revealed that the government owes secondary schools 29 billion shillings and primary schools nearly a half of their capitation weeks to the start of KCP and KCSE. You have a story on page 2 of the Standard this morning. And to whom do children belong? Think again. And then you have alama ya dukuduku there, or ellipsis. The High Court declares as unjust and discriminatory a customary notion that children belong to their fathers, ruling that claim was offensive to justice as it discriminated against mothers. And you have this story on page 3 of the Standard this morning. Also remember, the Pulse magazine come your way. It comes your way every Friday. Hats off for alt. You can read all the details inside the Standard this morning. It's all about also the debt and now the ministry has also disbursed some monies as well for the rollout of the school programs. That is how the Standard looks this morning. Government judicial independence is under attack. This is what Chief Justice says. And you can follow the story inside the Star this morning. There are bottlenecks. CJ says judiciary fund not operating optimally, though we know that on the budgetary allocation also they got some good tidy sum of money. And this is a story that you want to follow inside the Star this morning. Also, Siasa comes your way every Friday inside the Star. You can get all the details. The US, the story here about the CS Kibiki and how the US secured release of or has been given the thumbs up on the WorldCoin saga. So we have the Interpol also who can try and drop in and investigate the WorldCoin saga as well. So this is what is a story here. You can follow the story on page 8 of the Star this morning. And all counties delay payment of pending bills. Still, that is a problem. You can follow it. All the details inside the Star. Now, there is a report there of 128 killed by police. This is what the People Daily is carrying this morning. Alarming impunity. Whistleblower reveals majority of victims documented this year alone were young men or young male adults aged between 18 and 35 years. Officers also accused of perpetrating torture, inhuman, degrading treatment or punishment, as well as enforced disappearances. You can follow the story on page 4 of the People Daily this morning. 67.8 billion shillings debt by millers written off. Parliament has given approval of this, and you can follow the story on page 2 of the People Daily this morning. Also, still there's a problem question: why country will wait longer for Kenya Kwanza goodies? Not really a question, but why you will be waiting longer for the Kenya Kwanza promissory notes to be realized. You can follow all that inside the People Daily on page 16 this morning. Taifa Leo is up next. Waziri bila kazi, and you can see his face. Mshauri wa rais kuhusu masuala ya uchumi aongoza ujumbe wa kibiashara Amerika badala ya Moses Kuria. That is the story you want to follow inside Taifa Leo this morning. Hulka ya waziri wa biashara Moses Kuria imefanya azuiwe kukanyaga Amerika. Azuiwe kukanyaga Amerika anako wakilishwa na mashauri wa kibiashara kwenye ziara ya Rais William Ruto nchini humo. And you can follow the rest of the details on page 2 of Taifa Leo. Also, KEMSA kuharibu dawa za bilioni 1, wagonjwa wakitaabika. That is the story that you want to follow on page 4. And this medicine, maybe they could have expired, worth 1 billion shillings. That is the story you want to follow on page 4 of Taifa Leo this morning. Ruto orders PS's parastatal heads to account for tax billions. Officials have up to October the 2nd to respond to audit queries. Memo warns low compliance is fueling corruption. And also there is an illustration here of the corruption index. Kenya scored 32 out of 100 last year. Represents a highly corrupt, while 100 very clean. 0 represents highly corrupt, while 100 very clean. And you can see how we fared since 2018 up to now. It's been rising, right? That is from 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021 and 2022. It seems the menace of corruption is still with us. So there's a circular that has been given, and the executive officer of the president said that the accounting officers have until October the 2nd this year. Treasury eyes higher taxes or higher excess duty on fuel in IMF deal. The Treasury has disclosed that excise duty on fuel will be revised by April next year in a move that mirrors one of Kenya's commitment under the International Monetary Fund financing deal. And you can read the rest of the details inside the People Daily this morning. Also, MPs block Senate from scrutinizing national debt. Of course, they were seeking concurrence on the debate on the national debt, but that has been stopped by the MPs. Rubis takes 3.9 billion shillings forex hit in Kenya. CBK dollar limit order hands banks advantage. You can follow the rest of the details inside the People Daily this morning. This is how it looks. Also assessing the administration on economic performance on the basis of macroeconomic data. Will not give you fresh insight. That is an intelligence there, just reporting an opinion, I should say, by Jainika Kisero and Ian Waiguru. What matters most to me? This is on BD Live inside the Business Daily today. In Uganda, crackdown nets rogue airport security officers. That is the splash this morning. And I'll be showing you the rest of the international publications as we continue with the program on the split side, as we also hear from our panelists who are already here in studio. But the depressing news is what is on the front page also of the Daily Nation. If you're waking up this morning now and you're bound to be, of course, going to your petrol station, this is the amount you'll be paying per litre, 210 this morning. And of course, this came into effect last night after the announcement by EPRA. And that information was around 11 o'clock or 11 p.m. there when we received the information regarding the new prices that comes into effect immediately. High pump prices outside the government's control. And this is what EPRA is saying this morning. I have with me, of course, Professor Gitila Naituli, a governance and policy analyst. Also with me is Dr. Isaac Kalua Green, who is the party leader of the Green Thinking Action Party. Also with me, Kiputo Kirwa, who is a governance and policy analyst. And as well, we have Churchill Suba, who is the executive director of the Kenya National Civil Society Congress. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
It seems I should be serving you tea, so that I can actually ramp up and get a morning out of you. But good to see you, right? So yes, this is what you're waking up to this morning. Very depressing. We thought there will be relief, or maybe it will be stabilized at where it was. But right now, 210. It has never happened in this country that we've crossed over to the 200 mark as far as fuel prices is concerned. And we were just talking about also the levies that they've been slapped on Kenyans as well. So adding this, it seems in this country we're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, as it is. And now EPRA says this is beyond us. This happened also for the dollar. It says, okay, there's nothing much we can do with the dollar. Now we leave it now to the forces of the market to course correct itself. So it seems we just left on our own. Professor Gitila.
You know, the moment you saw the budget, first the moment you saw the government come into office and they say there is no money. And then the government produces a budget bigger than Uhuru Kenyatta. That's when you know that you must pay. So that's what you are doing basically. The chief secretary, Felix Gosingei, he told you corruption is on an industrial scale. What did you think he was telling you? He was telling you the money is leaving the country in foreign currency in a big way. That's what Gosingei was saying. Meaning that you must pay for that corruption. Where the people want to steal the money, where do you think they are going to get it from? They must get it from you. So, from you, the citizen, that's what I'm saying. So, if you have this kind of laissez-faire government, then it will ruin the Kenyans, whether they like it or not. Okay, and they probably deserve to be fined because we are thoughtless when we are electing our leaders. We don't want them to account. Energy is everything, really. If there is no proper planning on energy, production goes down, there is no jobs. So the more taxes this government levies on the Kenyans, in my opinion, also the less they are going to collect.
The less they're going to collect.
Yeah.
And of course also why we have the crude reality there is the oil prices, as we get information, the latest as well internationally, that is the crude oil, has climbed since yesterday to the highest, it says, this year, as expectation of taxes outweighed worries about weaker economic growth and rising U.S. crude inventories. On Wednesday also we have the International Energy Agency saying that Saudi Arabia and Russia's extended oil output cuts will result in a market deficit through the fourth quarter's prices briefly pulled back on a bearish, of course, U.S. inventory report. This is what they're saying currently. And also on China, now them paring back also on their reserves, waiting for the inflation to stabilize as well. This is bound to tick up. Now the oil prices internationally has gone to the highest level, rising by 10% as it were, or oil price highest in 10 months, not really 10%, in 10 months. So this is bound also to be affecting as well. Let's just say for Kiprito Arab Kirwa. You look very subdued today. Is it Friday?
I actually thought the same.
Yeah, you thought the same, yeah? It seems the energy levels are low. Maybe I need to serve some tea quickly on this small kiosk of mine.
I've not fueled my car.
You've not fueled your car?
Yes, I wish I had known how to fuel last night.
Even me, I just, and it was on empty. So I said I'll do it in the morning.
Well, it would have saved me a bit of some few coins. But let me say the following. At times, people think that we are harsh to this administration. And when you look at it critically, they pretended through their campaign that one, Ukraine does not affect economy of Kenya. Two, the issue of drought and COVID were not factors that were going to affect Kenya directly. Three, they were behaving as if we are isolated from the world economy. Now, all these things seem to be catching up with them to the extent that they don't seem to have answers for some of the problems. You know, it is easy to generate propaganda when you are getting to power, but it is impossible to sustain the same propaganda against so many promises that they made, that once the Bible is down, the cost of living will come down. Once the Bible is down, many of the taxes would be removed. And I remember there is a clip that is doing the rounds, the current president condemning the previous regime, which he was part of, because of so many taxes. He himself is taking us back to many years, almost more than 20 years, when we were paying for road license, which was removed and put to be part of the cost of fuel. That's why in Kenya, about 52% of fuel is just nothing but taxes. So now they're bringing the taxes, and already they have incorporated in the fuel cost a worrying situation that you know. Finally, for this particular issue of fuel, they lied 6 months ago that we are going to buy fuel in Kenya shillings, as if there is fuel that is produced here. Today they are struggling to raise 580 billion shillings in dollars to be able to pay the people who gave us fuel for government, what they were calling government-to-government fuel arrangement. These are some things, and the advice I would give to this regime is that, yes, when you make promises and you happen to win, or you are declared the winner, when you get into power, it is good for you to turn your manifesto into a policy statement and a direction that will assist you do the implementable things. Because the promises they made, they are not likely to meet even a quarter of them, even if you gave them 15 years to be in power without going through an election. This is something that we feel they should tell us less of lies. They should tell us the truth, that yes, it is not possible. Yes, Ukraine is here. It has affected us. Yes, the dollar is going up. We don't know when it will come down, because they pretended it will come to 120 and said perhaps even 115. Now it has gone almost at 150. Now, finally, they were condemning fuel subsidy. And subsidy was not a permanent solution. It was a remedial action for stabilization, because we pay taxes. And at times when there are these vagaries of fuel prices going up and down, that is when subsidy can be injected for purposes of ensuring that we do not suffer the vagaries of international economics. And when you say you are subsidizing production, fuel is one major component of ensuring that production comes low. I remember during the days the early days of our independence, there were two different types of diesel. One for farming and one for normal transport industry. And it was meant to assist to cushion the farmer. There were different colors for purposes of ensuring this is going to the farm and this is going for general transport system. That's why they had the wisdom that production is not just a fertilizer. Production goes beyond fertilizer. Fuel is a major component of the cost of production.
Major component, and of course we had the government-to-government arrangement with the UAE, remember, that was meant to cushion and stabilize the prices as it were because of the spiking and the yo-yoing of the dollar as it is. It seems that has not really materialized so far, if you may remember that particular arrangement.
Yeah, that's why they are looking for 580 billion Kenya shillings to pay in dollars.
In dollars.
To pay back.
Did you look at that contract of the EU? You see, when the market, when people are allowed to bend, they understand the cost or the margin for profit for the benders was 0.04% per, I don't know, metric ton or something. In this government to government, they put 118 fixed. So they were minting in billions. The process was simply to make money for people. It had nothing to do with making your fuel cheaper or even saving the dollar. There was even a case in court. I don't know what happened to that case. I think these fellows, maybe they were scared and dropped the case. But that's in government to government. Eventually, I think you will find that it was just a corruption enterprise.
All right. So we had the government also really mulling over because the subsidy was taken away. Then they said, okay, we want a resumption sort of a subsidy. But we're calling it a stabilization.
Even the subsidy bill is ingenious. What do they say? Because look here, yes. I mean, we are very serious economists here. Whether it's Uhuru Kenyatta or William Ruto, they know the best way to subsidize anything is to remove tax on that commodity. That way, the subsidy goes to every Kenyan. But when you set up money to pay your own company, because your company is importing fuel, what are you really subsidizing? You are simply having a method of distributing money to yourself. The only way you genuinely subsidize fuel is to remove the tax.
All right. Let's hear from Dr. Kalua, just a bit, because I know now he's been championing the EV vehicles. And I know everyone knows the thinking, maybe this is the best way to go. If this is... we have electrical vehicles that, it's in the market right now. And as we've seen before, also government is mulling over the motor circulation vehicle tax. That is bound to be maybe a cure because if we are gravitating towards the EV vehicles, it means also this 210 per litre shillings and all the fuel levy that goes with it, that will be lost. And so for them also to cushion themselves, they are moving now to making sure that when you're paying up for the insurance, also you're paying for the motor circulation tax. But tell us, are we ready for the EV?
Ready we are, without any doubt. And before I respond to whether we are ready or not on EV, allow me to mention that the issue of high cost of fuel is something that is not only disturbing our country, Kenya, but much more beyond other regions. Because we do have, I was just looking and I regularly get updates from Japan. And we found, I just noticed that Japan is at its highest level of cost of fuel right now. I think they are doing 185 yen at the moment, which is the highest ever that it has ever gotten into. And they are trying to remove subsidies that the government had put in. So first and foremost, the issue of, you can compare 185 and 200. The Japanese yen is more or less the same as the Kenyan shilling in terms of value to the dollar. And therefore, it's a problem not only in Kenya, it is a problem beyond. Kenya needs, of course, to do much more than what we have done to save its populace from the high cost of living, because it starts with the cost of fuel. So this is an international challenge, and I believe that much more, just like my colleagues have mentioned, needs to be done. But let's us also look at it as a challenge that is beyond Kenya and in the presence of a depreciating US dollar. So that is something that needs to be dealt with, and I believe our economists need to come up with something. A great balance between what must be done as budgeted and funds that must be raised towards achieving what the plan of the government is. But let me try and now get into what you have just asked about. The issue of EVs is such a practical thing. I've been on electric vehicles for the last 3 years.
Right. And before you even latch down on that particular road on EV, let me just hear from Churchill Suba so that we can actually get that.
I just wanted to give you just a one.
I'll get back to it so that I just get to hear also freshly what he thinks about the new EV as well. And as civil society, what are they preparing?
The role of any government, and the Kenyan government is not an exception, is to cushion vulnerable segments of the population against some of these shocks. And this is where I slightly disagree with my brother Kalua that it is, yes, it is a global, whatever we are going through is as a result of some of the global forces. But our government, even as late as yesterday, President William Ruto appointed an additional advisor in the name of the former CS for energy, Honorable Keter. When government or the presidency saddles itself with so many advisors, we want to see the impact of that advice. And we have seen President William Ruto stand on the rostrum and promise how in a week's time, and he was saying it with a lot of apparent certainty. We thought that he had been properly advised that the Kenya shilling will begin to gain against the greenback. But what followed was a skyrocketing of the greenback against today I think it is somewhere between 145, 147. So we want to see those many advisors. That appointing advisors, of course, goes with the presidential system. We have a cabinet that does not seem to also properly advise the president. So we still want to demand as civil society that the government's core responsibility is not to say that, Kenyans be exposed to all this manner of, high cost of living brought about by racketeers. It's upon government to make sure that vulnerable segments of the population, and indeed all Kenyans, because all Kenyans are taxpayers, are properly protected from some of these forces. But what worries me is the persistent attitude by His Excellency that appears to enjoy the suffering of Kenyans. You saw even in the most recent international forum, African Climate Summit, the president was only thinking of more taxes. In a platform like that, he was proposing carbon tax, and when it appeared that the audience was not, appeared not, as far as he appeared to be concerned, listening, he repeated it and said, I repeat, carbon tax. And it occurred to me that we could be dealing with a president who appears to be sadistic. He seems to enjoy the suffering of people. And you wonder then where that leaves us all, because if you have a president that is completely insensitive to public opinion, that, you know, doesn't seem to care, it confirms some of the findings that when he was deputy president and appeared to begin to be falling out with the former president, we sought to understand what is the fallout about? Why is this falling out? And some of the things we were told were a bit worrying, because we were told that the then deputy president, and who is now president, did not believe that election promises are to be fulfilled. That some of the differences used to arise even during campaigns, where they would go back and review, and the former president would say, William, are you sure we will be able to fulfill all that we promised? They sounded very nice, the people were excited, but the former president used to be concerned that today's voter is different from the older generation of voters, and today's voter documents what you say, as you put it across. And the former president was supposedly, you know, concerned that very soon, after the elections, people would start playing back those very promises that, you know, Honorable Ruto was, not Ruto, Kiru has said. And so it seems to confirm those, findings that you know, some of the differences used to begin from, you know, even the campaign platform, where the current president used to have this attitude that, you know, election promises are not to be fulfilled. And it seems to confirm what we are going through as a people. And even as the president continues to mull over all manner of taxes, including in international fora, where, you know, you'd expect that, increased taxes and climate change have a correlation, because when you impoverish people who previously could afford to cook with liquefied petroleum gas, so and they resort to firewood, then you are acting anti, all the climate change efforts that are being made. And so the complete lack of sensitivity on the part of government is what, in our view as a sector, civil society, we find very, very worrisome.
Very worrisome. So before we get on the flip side of the EV, I want just to ask the question of the stabilization fund, because it's just last month that we had the government restating a small subsidy to stabilize the fuel prices for the next 30 days. And we had the Energy Regulatory Authority stating that this is a reversal of its policy following public anger over, of course, the high cost of living. That is what was being reported here, not really from a statement from EPRA. And the stabilization fund, and then now we hear EPRA saying it is beyond the government's control. Well, they also none the wiser that when they were making this statement and coming up with the stabilization fund, that this will be beyond their control, or what was really informing, I know you're not in government, that particular decision to come up with a stabilization fund to try and cushion Kenyans. And secondly, are they ruining the day when they rolled back on the subsidy? Because we said, the president was very categorical that is going to give subsidy to production and not consumption. But that has not also remedied the high cost of living.
I don't really think the stabilization was intended, the fund was intended to stabilize the fuel prices or anything else, because I mean, you have to remember the president was asked by the journalist what he thought about the fuel prices and Uhuru Kenyatta, and he said the taxes. He said there was too much taxes in the fuel, so he knows the problem. Because if you want to do this thing, you simply reduce the, I think he said 52%, but the taxes is actually 60%. Part of it is in fact in double taxation, because you have the VAT, but you have the levy, which was not removed when the VAT wasn't going up. So if you want to stabilize these prices, just reduce tax. But you see, you are asking the government, which knows only how to tax and consume, to reduce taxes. And then if you reduce taxes, then how do you go to Israel for, the CMCS from Makueni? They went to Israel, allegedly for benchmarking, only to be told that what you are learning here, we learned it in Makueni. Okay? I mean, you have a delegation right now in Colombia learning how to grow coffee. This coffee is learned by the deputy president. So, if you are going to have uncontrolled expenditure, if you are going to have uncontrolled expenditure, then you must tax. If you are going to have a situation again described as corruption at the industrial level, then you must tax. Because the money to fund that corruption, the money to fund excessive expenditure, the money to fund the helicopter flights all over the country by the ministers who allegedly simply must fly and the vehicle go on the ground to fund uncontrolled governmental expenditure. You must tax, and then you must be a Kenyan, because you see there is one unique thing about us we need to accept. The Americans invented the lie detector. The idea is when you put that ENG machine on a good person, and the person is lying, the machine will read the lie. But if you're a pathological liar, you believe in your own lies, because you see, Kenyans believe in their own lies. Then I can assure you that you will pass the ENG, you will pass the lie detector. So the problem with us is we are becoming an extremely dishonest lot. So we will tell you we are subsidizing fuel, when all we are doing is we are using that opportunity to transfer money to ourselves. We will tell you, for example, we have been singing about independent power producers here. KenGen, which is a public entity, we paid 5 shillings and 48 cents per unit. The others, we paid them from 48 shillings to 173 shillings. So this is the government using the energy sector to distribute money to its citizens from poor people, money that could buy medicine in dispensaries, money that could build a better classroom, money that would be used to fix some access roads in Nyandarua, so that the most of that produce, instead of feeding cows, can reach the market. So what we have is a transactional leadership system. We departed that briefly under Kibaki, but every single president in this country, other than Kibaki, has been a transactional leader, personal. Decision made. We are now spending, I don't know how many billion to produce new ideas. If the economy is bad, why do you want to spend that money for new ideas? You rather take that money to hospitals, to dispensaries. Why do you want to change the police uniform? What's the wrong with the one they're having? And what was wrong even with the other one? So this whole thing goes down to what he said. We have sadist leaders who enjoy our suffering. Right. And they love the aggrandizement that comes with the power, and that comes with the transactional leadership as opposed to transformational.
Dr. You hold that view that the leaders who enjoy the suffering of Kenyans. Is that entirely true, coming from Professor?
The approach, and I really appreciate what Professor and team has said. The approach that we need to take, in my own opinion, if it counts, is one, to be problem solvers across the actions that we take. There is no doubt that subsidies create a lot of fiscal imbalance, and they also create a lot of pressure to the budgetary allocation in any country, even in the homes that we are in. And therefore, the solution may never, at any given time, lie in subsidies. The solution may not even be immediate in terms of finding lesser taxes on the cost of fuel and all that, because it still does not solve the situation. In my opinion, the situation needs to be sorted out by going directly to what can save Kenyans a lot of money. And you can imagine when the cost of fuel is at 200 plus, the cost of transportation, particularly for the common person, transporting things, going for trading, going for different purposes, travel, is too expensive. And this turns around to the pocket of the already poor community. What can we therefore do? It may look far-fetched, but look at a very practical example. Driving into this place in a green car, it has costed me a total value of 20 shillings in terms of the value of cost of my energy to get to this place. It may look far-fetched right now, but we also have buses that are electric now. If we can keep moving in that direction to save Mwananchi the much that we can, because let us agree and let us face it, the cost of fuel, it is not just an issue in Kenya. It is not about President Ruto. It is not about the government of Kenya at the moment. I have just quoted it and said that it is an issue. Even in Japan, it is at its highest, which is at about 100, close to 190 Kenya shillings, if not more. And therefore, we must look, without having to blame each other, to try and support a process that can help Mwananchi to save more. Mwananchi to be able to deal with the cost of living in the best way possible. So my suggestion is that we need to start that journey. It's a long journey. How in the meantime can we be able to protect Mwananchi in the reality of things? Because it goes up here, it goes up anywhere else in the world. What can we be able to do? There is a fiscal issues that must be created in the process. How are we going to meet with the balance? How are we going to buy our medicine? Those are things now that we need to deal with. And no wonder. I have sticked my neck towards a direction that we must start looking at, of changing some clauses of the Constitution, because some of the things that we are dealing with, if only we dealt with the issue of leadership and integrity, we will be able to deal with quite a lot of things. Because a lot of money, even under all these circumstances, money is being pilfered. And we need to be able to deal with those. Those who are stealing money, public coffers, they need to be jailed. They need to get out of office. We cannot be praising and working with people that are out there imagining that they are doing what they are expected to do. And I must salute the people who are working towards changing these kind of things, towards changing our nation. But as I finish, Debal, there is what the government must be able to do. And I'm thinking about this at a time where we are 1 year into the leadership of the current government. And I want to say it without fear or confusion, because it's free advice that I want to give, if it counts. One, the government has done quite a lot of things. There is no doubt. On matters of agriculture, excellent. The weather kind of worked against some of the activities, and there is much that must be done. But the government is still failing in one, dealing with communication. Communication so that what is being done is communicated to the people of Kenya. This is a terrible mistake, that we don't even have a government spokesman at the moment to be able to deliberate and express issues that can be dealt with. The second thing is the feeling that they sound as if they don't care about the welfare of Mwananchi, which is not true. The fact that there is, Mwananchi wants to feel someone understands them. Someone is caring about them. Someone understands what they are going to do. But when we are talking over and above each other, when we seem not to be caring, seem is the issue, then there is a problem. And the third thing is the space where we start not attacking the real issues in the best way possible. You can hear my colleague, and I agree when he says that carbon tax and all this may not have been dealt with, or you know, maybe is an issue of understanding that needs to be dealt with, because carbon tax may not mean necessarily to the common man. But imagine what has just been achieved out of the just ended summit and conference. When we hear the president is locking out people when they don't keep time, that it is 9 a.m. and you are 9:03 and you are locked out. How many ministers are keeping time? How many officers, how many governors are keeping time to see and to show mwananchi we care? And because time is the only resource that we have. These things need to be replicated. The country, even as we speak about the issue of unity for Africa, which is going to yield a lot of fruit, including what we have just seen, the permanent seat in G20, and I am sure that soon it will be a seat in the G7, G8, and very soon it will be a permanent seat in United Nations Security Council. What are we doing to deliver that locally? That we can speak as a nation, one voice. What are we doing? And it is at the portfolio of each government officer, each cabinet secretary, each principal secretary to deal with issues of unifying the team. But what you find right now, you find ministers are not working with the PSS. That I have been appointed by the president, that I'm immediately appointed by the president. And you start finding them pulling in different directions. These are things that we need to deal with so that mwananchi can be able to understand that the government cares for them.
Thank you.
That needs to come up.
All right, so we back to the issue of the oil as it is. We had the government mulling over it, because when we have such times when we have the rising cost of fuel, the National Oil Corporation was meant to be the corporation that comes in handy as a buffer to cushion Kenyans. And we've seen it's been performing dismally. And that recently there has been a cabinet approval that the National Oil Corporation should be restructured so that we have 3 tiers. So there's the upstream and the downstream, and the other one I think is purely administrative, I can't remember. Just to try and also make sure that we have outlets where we can be buying fuel, not at the current market rate, but at least at a subsidized price from the National Oil Corporation. Maybe it's a high time we need to interrogate also the value of the National Oil Corporation, because even when they were going to make this particular deal at the UAE, I think the Gulf Corporation refused the National Oil Corporation should be on the table at the end of the day. So in terms of perception, in terms of reviving this, because this was meant to be the buffer, that we can go to the National Oil Corporation and we'll buy, if it is at 210 at least, maybe even 10 shillings, it could be 200 shillings. And that will be a reprieve. 10 shilling will be, can make a discernible difference to a mwananchi here in the country.
Now, first let me say that, you know, listening to my brother Kalua here, you can see how innocent Kenyans really are. Either innocent or there is something we say where I come from, that a clever person decided to give intelligence in the body. You see, to kill intelligence in the body is to refuse to use your brain when you have it, but you deliver it till you don't want to use it. There's electric vehicles, even if we are to have them, at present they will be more expensive than the fuel. I don't know if you people read the story of this motorbike fellow. He buys for 500,000, then it takes, I don't know, 6 hours to charge. That cost of charging was more than the fuel if you went to buy the fuel. It was a very well calculated story on that motorbike. Then there is this, the fellow also was supposed to go to Moyale. And they calculated and said that he would have saved over 12,000 by just using the fuel instead of using the electric. So the policy need to narrow this down. But now coming to the National Oil Company. Coming to the National Oil Company, you see, when you are doing in genuine business, you want to do it with a government organization. I keep on going back to Kibaki policy, because Mheshimiwa Gerui has served in that government. One of the policies, initial policy, which was issued, I think 3 weeks after Kibaki taking office, was that all government procurement, if you want to have a seminar, if you can't have it in your boardroom, you must have it in a government institution. Mheshimiwa. Yeah. So, if you are doing in genuine government, it is national oil that should have been given the tender to import the oil, not any other company. So it's not true those guys refuse to deal with the national oil. What is true, and it should be obvious if you want to be honest, the people, is that somebody simply didn't want to put the national oil in that contest. Because there is no way some entity, foreigner, can say, I'm not dealing with a government agency. Yeah. I thought it was supposed to be government to government. So how do you say them?
Contradiction. But I'm just confirming what was reported.
Yes. So the thing is, we just decide the truth is right in front of us, and we just don't want to see it. That's why they say that the lie can travel 10 times around the world before the truth ties its shoes. Because you just don't want to see it. So it's not correct. I think this is what we call transactional, because when you are working for the country, when you are chairman in Mao, you don't even have pockets. We don't care about a dictator. But you see, when you are dictating for yourself, this is what we reject. So it's not using the national oil would be a fantastic thing, but that one you will have to wait for another Kibaki to be born. It's not going to happen because look.
But
you see, this
in
is
addition
where
to what Naituli is saying, what are the contradictions even within the oil industry? Who is the current chair of the National Oil Corporation? And who are the people being rumored to be shareholders in the independent power producers? Is it coincidental that as soon as President William Ruto takes over, that some of the people now at the helm of the National Oil Corporation were the most strategic to appoint? When we are told about de-dollarization, yet, those independent power producers are paid in dollars. All these anti-dollar campaigns that we are treated to is populist. Is meant to project, what in my view, and I said it earlier in this very platform, is posturing. People are posturing to maintain certain notions of Pan-Africanism that are not real, that are not skin deep. So if we really wanted to tackle the issue of, skyrocketing fuel prices, I would not even go as far as Japan. I would start with the neighboring countries. Yes, how does the price of fuel in Kenya compare with Tanzania, with Uganda? We operate almost within the same context. Before the oil gets into the fuel pumps in Kampala, it passes through Nairobi. And in cars, more costs as it does that. How come it is cheaper? Why is it that people who live in Bungoma would cross the border to go and fuel their motorcycles, their vehicles in Uganda? What makes our fuel more expensive? When His Excellency the President mocks people who are protesting against the cost of living and says, as he often does, that wearing sufurias on the head will not increase. The President, for the first time, you have the most educated President, a PhD holder. We are not asking too much if we demanded a more reasoned, the most reasoned argument from our President than we have ever done. Reason? We have a PhD holder State House, and we would want to benefit the most from its, exceptional levels of education, so that we do not have the same questions that maybe a less educated president would have asked. We want the president to ask more intelligent questions, not tell us that, wearing sufurias. The reason people are wearing sufurias is because they are saying, we have nothing to cook in these sufurias. And the leadership has a responsibility to make what we can cook in these sufurias more affordable to us. And that's the message people are sending out. Now, when you have the most educated president, you expect the most intelligent arguments and reasoning out there. That is what we are demanding of His Excellency, President William Samoei Ruto, and saying the country too, in addition to its own efforts, the country too invested in its high levels of education. And the country is not wrong to demand a little more intelligent reasoning and argument on public platforms that, you know, yes, wearing sufurias is not meant to lower the cost of living, but to send the message that had we had something to cook in these sufurias, we would not be wearing them on our heads. And that is what we are expecting of government. We are saying that let our fuel prices be cheaper than they are in Kampala, be cheaper than they are in Dar, because we operate within the same context, even before we reach Japan.
Right, we'll circle back with Kiprito Rapkirwa. This is the reality you're waking up to this morning. Fuel price and the crude reality, 210 per liter is what you're going to be paying this morning as you try and fill your tank or just get a liter or two as well. Prices are going to adversely affect the cost of living, and also globally the oil price is shot up the highest in 10 months as it is, and this is the pain at the pump that we are discussing.